Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another interesting episode of Matters of Faith. Once again, we're joined by our most humble and esteemed guest, Sheikh Ma'ash. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Today we're going to be furthering our discussion in regards to the concept of Imamah. Previously we were discussing about the presence of Imam at all time and his relationship towards the Sharia. Today, ideally, I would like to kind of touch upon responsibility towards the concept of a leader and obedience towards a leader. Could you just give us a brief introduction, maybe a hadith of what type of mindset Muslims and human beings should have towards a divine leader?
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. Initially, we believe that the Imams have the authority and that Allah gave them this authority over the people, and this appointment came by the mediation of the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He actually appointed them officially. Their names are mentioned in the traditions, and of course, these Imams, they are the witnesses for mankind, and they are the doors and pathways towards the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they are guides to Him and the guardians of His knowledge. And of course, they interpret Allah's words, the Holy Quran, and the tradition of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the people. They are the only people who have the right to interpret and speak clearly about the meanings of the Quran. Nobody has the right to reveal his opinion, which is against the words of the Quran and the tradition of the Prophet and the sayings of Ahlul Bayt Salamullah alayhim ajma'in. And thus, the Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, and his pure family said with this regard, "My household is like the Ark of Noah." And let me mention something here about these ahadiths. There are some ahadith the Prophet mentions and he compares them with the Prophets. For example, as I've mentioned this last episode, that the Prophet said, Ali to me is like Aaron to Musa. Mm-hmm. Now here he says, my progeny, my household, alayhi salam, they are like the Ark of Noah. Mm-hmm. And what happened in the Ark of Noah? That he called for the belief of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in oneness of Allah, and to deny all the idols and the wrong worships. Mm-hmm. But they refused that. So only a few people, around 80 people, believed in him and joined him in the ark. And the rest were drowned away because of their disbelief. Destroyed, yeah. So subhanAllah, the Prophet tries to bring an example from the past prophets that as Nuh and his companions joined this ark and they were saved, you also have to basically follow Ahlul Bayt Salam in order to be saved from...
So it's more than just a matter of obedience and disobedience. It's a matter really, if you think about it, of success and destruction. Because as you mentioned in this hadith about Nabi Nuh alayhi salam, those people that don't come into the Ark of Salvation will inevitably be destroyed, either by the punishment or the adhab of Allah, or by their own internal deviations. So I mean, in regards to what you're saying, it's almost vital for mankind's success, pivotal for mankind's success, that he embarks on this ark and he does follow a divine leader. Otherwise, there is no success for a person. Is that correct?
That's true. Let me finish the hadith and I'll basically give some details about this hadith. Yes, the Prophet ﷺ said, my household is like the Ark of Noah. Whosoever embarks upon it will be saved, and whosoever turns away from it will be drowned. Now, as I've said, if we go back to the time of Nuh alayhi salam, we'll see the history in brief, that people didn't believe in him, many of them, the majority, but also one person didn't believe in him, and he was the closest person to him. It was son of Noah. And that gives us a truly a double thinking that we have to be be aware and make sure that we choose the right path and we shouldn't be deviated. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no relationship and friendship with anyone. Even the son of the Prophet, or the wife of the Prophet, or the cousin of the Prophet, Allah doesn't have any kind of relationship with anyone.
There's no favoritism.
It's to do with the belief and disbelief. You believe, you're welcome. You don't believe, you're away. You're doomed, destroyed. Even if you are the son of a prophet or wife of a prophet.
It's a very, very strong point that you mentioned there.
The ayah says, with regard to son of Nuh, when his father Nuh alayhi salam invited him for being in the ark, he said in response, the son of Nuh, قال سآوي إلى جبل يعصمني من الماء. He said, son of Nuh, I will take refuge on a mountain to protect me from the water, from the flood. قال نوح عليه السلام لا عاصم اليوم من أمر الله. Nuh عليه السلام said, there is no protector today from the decree of Allah. Whoever you are, son of Nuh, wife of Nuh, whoever you are, as the minute you make the decision of leaving this right person and denying this religion, you're destroyed. That's it. You're off with this ark, and you're drowned. لا عاصم اليوم من أمر الله إلا من رحم وحال بينهما الموج فكان من المغرقين. There is no protector today from the decree of Allah except for whom He gives mercy. And the waves came between them, and he was among the drowned. He lost. Son of Nuh, yes, it doesn't matter. Or wife of Nuh, yes, it doesn't matter. Because they refused and rejected this message, this divine message, which Nuh spent almost 950 years in the da'wah, giving da'wah. 950 years, just imagine. It's a lot of time. But the adab came and they refused to accept this da'wah. Only few, as I've said, around 80. And even son of Nuh didn't accept it. So he was drowned. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished them because of their rejection to the divine message.
SubhanAllah. So within this tradition that the Prophet mentions, alayhi salam, there's also even a historical background evidence to show, for example, even if you're very close, as you've mentioned, and you make that one mistake, not mistake, but you choose to take the wrong path. It's not a mistake because you choose to take the wrong path. The destruction that you'd face on the other side. But I mean, obviously now, with the Muslim community being so wide, there is a lot of discussion. A lot of people have differences of opinion. And there are people that say, for example, well, for example, from the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'at, they say, well, we believe, for example, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, he was a leader. We do believe he was a leader, but we believe he was the fourth in a chain of leaders. We don't believe he was the first. Are they, to some degree, are they on this ark then, or are they kind of fence sitting? Where would you put people like that say, we do believe that he is a Khalifa, but we don't believe he was the first Khalifa? You know, this, I think you mentioned it before, the Afdal and the kind of middle leader. So something like that. Where do you place these people then?
Well, initially we forward to them some questions, and we ask, number one, who said that who appointed the first three leaders? Number one. Number two, who said that the Imam alayhi salam is the fourth leader and the Khalif? Other questions, I mean, a lot of questions could be raised and asked, that why should we follow the first three leaders? So even if you make one sin, you're dhalim, you're oppressing yourself. So the three leaders before Ali alayhi salam, you know, as they declare that and say that, they actually were non-Muslims. They even their ulama confessed that they drank alcohol, they such and such, they worshipped idols and so forth. And subhanAllah, they said to Ali alayhi salam, Karram Allah wajh, may Allah purify his face, because he never worshipped a stone or idol. So they know that Ali is better, at least in this
that area
and corner. But they still say, well, the best, this hadith which is well known in their books, the best people after the Prophet is Abu Bakr, then Umar, then either Ali or Uthman, but we say it's Uthman and then Ali. So where did the Prophet, I mean, these ahadith that they narrate, is sometimes we can argue with them with the hadith which is accepted by both sides, but the hadith which is not accepted by us, for example, we cannot argue on this hadith. You only mention it. There's only one chain of narrator. We cannot trust this hadith and contradicts with the Holy Quran and.
But this tradition that you've mentioned about Nuh is accepted by both sides,
of course,
unanimously.
Yes. Of course,
that's a very interesting tradition. Then, so I mean, then furthermore, what about those individuals that say, for example, who are more mystical or they prefer the more ascetic side of Islam, where they say that we truly do love Ali ibn Abi Talib, we take a lot from Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Is that the same as obedience? For example, I remember when I was in Syria, and there was an individual there. He was from the Ahl Sunnah wal Jamaat, and he said, I love and I respect Ali ibn Abi Talib with the highest level of respect. Obviously, his words in Najr Balagha mean a lot to me, but I am from the Ahl Sunnah wal Jamaat. Does that count as well as obedience, so having that love and affection for Ali ibn Abi Talib? Or is there more to it than that? Is there more than just love?
Okay, let me just mention, before we move to the next question, just one final point I need to mention here with regard to Nuh and his son. There's one word that stops you and you try to ponder about why did, for example, Nuh's son left his father's call and message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The verse says, وَكَانَ فِي مَعْزِلٍ, and he was in an isolation. This isolation sometimes, or most of the times, causes some kind of being away from Ahl al-Haq, the people of right. You see, for example, if you were in society,
in isolation.
Yes, in isolation. He was with the bad people, with the bad side.
Okay.
So, of course, when you are befriend with, as I've said, one of the enemies of the humanity is the corrupt society. When you live within a corrupt society, every day you see people, they drink, they do such and such, and you're a friend of them. Gradually, your spirituality will be reduced, and it depends on your faith. If you're a mu'min, you can basically do the jihad al-nafs and try to push all these difficulties. But sometimes, if you can't, or you're weak iman, then you might be swallowed by this.
And your barriers come down inside.
So the ayah says, وَكَانَ فِي مَعْزٍ, he was in isolation. So isolation is not recommended in Islam at all. I mean, most of ulama say you have to be within the community. Try to guide them, try to talk. So don't be away, don't live in a village, for example, and be isolated from Ahlul Deen and the ulama and so forth. Be within somewhere in a city or in a place that you can meet a alim. In some narrations says, زاحم العلماء, it means go and visit the ulama and sit with them and talk to them. If you're in isolation, you have questions, you have many sorts of things to ask, ahkam shar'iyya, so you'll be in trouble of basically with some ahkam, and you'll start to commit sins because you don't know the hukum. And
it's good obviously to have that input from an alim, someone that's studied, who can give you an input into your life.
Yes. Now, with regard to the question, go back to the question. You see, we have love and we have obedience and pursuing and following that person. Yes, I love, for example, the pious followers of Ahlul Bayt, those who follow Ahlul Bayt. We love the Shia, the true devotees of Ahlul Bayt, like Salman, like Abi Dhar. But I don't follow them as imams and as leaders. Loving the companions of Imam as-Sadiq, yes, we love them, we respect them. But it's different than following the Imam himself. So you follow the leader, it means you believe in him. You believe in him as an Imam of this world and the hereafter. You take your religion from him. You basically, when you say this person is the caliph of the Messenger of Allah, whoever it is, you take your religion from him. So that's why we see the difference between us and the non-Shia in the way they pray, in the way they go to the Hajj. And many of the Islamic acts of law, they're different than us because they followed a different leader who gave the Muslims, the non-Shia Muslims, a different way of acting with the worships and so forth.
So I mean, obviously you clearly mentioned there's a major difference between just loving an individual and having respect for them and truly being obedient to them and following them. A quick question I would ask: what would you say to, for example, like the university student who's studying right now, or possibly the businessman who's working? What would you say to that individual who's Shia, saying, look, you have to be obedient to your mom, and these are the responsibilities that you have? Because, I mean, it's very easy to say you have to be obedient to your imam. It's the same way, for example, you have to be obedient somewhat to your mother, but there's responsibilities, obviously, that I have to fulfill. For example, if my mother is elderly, I have to look after her, I have to care for her. What are my responsibilities towards my imam? That's my first question. I have another one after, but if you could just give some light on that. What's my responsibilities towards my imam?
Initially, the word Islam means submission. You submit yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whatever He says in His holy book or by His messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now you have to abide. Because we as Muslims, we have the shahadatain at least. The shahada of La ilaha illallah and Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi, and of course the Shia wa ashhadu anna aliyan waliyullah salamullah alayhi. So when you sign this contract of being a Muslim, then you have to abide. It's like signing a contract of a mortgage or rent or any property. You have to basically follow the rules and legislation of this contract. Otherwise, you're in breach. You have to pay a penalty. Now, this is not a game. This is not just a materialistic fact. It's actually it's a religion of Allah on earth. And as far as you believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you believed in His holy book, you believed in His messengers, now you're almost on the edge of continue this belief by accepting the authority and the obedience of the imams, of those who were appointed by the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to have a complete religion, a complete belief in order to success in this world and in the hereafter. Let me mention you an example. There's a hadith well known even in the Shia and non-Shia books called the Hadith al-Thaqalain. Now here the Prophet ﷺ clearly he makes them in equal side, in the parallel, the book of Allah and the pursuing of His family. The hadith says, I leave two great and precious things among you, the book of Allah and my household. If you keep hold of them, both, you will never go astray after me. So, as I've said, the Sunnah, the Hadith of the Prophet, especially when it's narrated in both books, it's proof for all Muslims that we have to follow not only the Book of Allah and we stop. As Umar said, Hasbuna kitabullah, the Book of Allah is sufficient for us when the Prophet was passing away. So, we don't accept this fact that the Book of Allah is enough, because we need interpreters, somebody who knows, who has the knowledge of the book. When عنده علم الكتاب, as the Quran says, the knowledge of the book. And they're only Ahlul Bayt, as the Prophet says, the Kitabullah wa itrati Ahlul Bayt, the Book of Allah and my household. So you cannot just say, yes, I'll just believe in the whole Quran and worship, but Ahlul Bayt, well, I respect them, I love them. You have to pursue them, because they are parallel with the Book of Allah. Then the Prophet says, one of them is greater than the other. The Book of Allah is like a rope hanging from heaven to earth, and the other is my family, my household. Remember, these two will never be separated from each other until they encounter me at Al-Kawthar pond. So they will remain forever till the Day of Judgment. They will not be separated at all. So this means we have to pursue and follow the Holy Quran's statements, yes, which is Allah's statements, also the interpreters of this holy book, which are Ahlul Bayt Salamun alayhim. And the master of them is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
And I suppose, obviously, as you kind of mentioned somewhat before in the last episode, both of these entities are physical entities. For example, the Quran is something that you can touch, you can get direct access to, but it also has a spiritual and somewhat hidden aspect to it. And the same with the concept of the Imamah. There is that physical aspect to it that I'm sure, for example, if you do call your Imam, he will answer you and he will aid you. But there's an element that there's a hidden spiritual aspect to that as well. Just out of interest then, are there any instances, for example, where the Prophet may have mentioned by not following. I mean, I know you've mentioned it within the case of Nabi Nuh, but the Prophet himself by saying, those people that don't follow the information that I have left behind, or don't follow this hadith of Thaqalain, that there's a repercussion, or that there is a punishment, or there is there's a result as of that. Have you come across any traditions like that? That are agreed obviously by both sides, Sunni and Shi'i.
That's right. Interestingly, you'll be amazed to hear this, because in one of the most correct books in the world of Ahl al-Jama'ah, the Bakris, Sahih al-Bukhari, which is known to be the most correct book after the Book of Allah. That's why it's called Sahih, means correct. Sahih al-Bukhari, he mentions this hadith that, well, there are people within the Prophet's time who will deviate and will not go to the paradise. So the fact of that all the companions are just, basically this hadith will destroy and will void the fact of being justice, the fact of the Sahaba. Yeah. Sahih Bukhari mentions in volume 4, book 55, and hadith number 568, he mentions this hadith by Ibn Abbas. Ibn Abbas says that the Prophet said, peace be upon him and spare family, you will be gathered on the day of judgment, barefooted and naked on the day of judgment. Then the Prophet says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and some of my companions will be taken towards the left side. This is the Sahih Bukhari statement. To the left side, and then between two brackets in Sahih Bukhari, i.e. to the hellfire. The Prophet says, some of my companions, some of them are in hellfire now. How? They were with the Prophet, they saw the Prophet, they were beside the Prophet, they fought against the enemies with the Prophet, all those, the jihad and the sacrifice and the struggles. Now they go to the hellfire. Very strange. Then the Prophet says, and I will say, my companions, it will be said to the Prophet, either by the angels or by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they renegade, they apostated from Islam after you left them. After you left them, they came out of Islam. This is mentioned in Sahih Bukhari, again, volume 4, book 55, hadith number 568. So, not everyone will be allowed to drink from that Al-Kawthar pond, as the Prophet mentioned, that the Book of Allah and my family, my progeny, will be, I'll meet you as Muslims on the day of judgment in the pond of Kawthar. And of course, those who followed the Book of Allah and the progeny of the Prophet, they will drink from this Kawthar pond and they will go to the paradise. But some of them seems to be didn't follow the Prophet's family.
And it's very interesting that you say that these aren't just general people. These are actual companions of the Prophet that, as you mentioned, that fought with him, that were present at major events of his life. I mean, I'm not sure if you must be aware of this, but there's a very general belief from the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah that all companions will be going to heaven of the Holy Prophet, that all companions are there's no disagreement among them, they were all just individuals. This tradition from Bukhari, as you've mentioned, is saying something completely different from what is the general belief. And how do you weigh these two things up then? I mean, for someone who's from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, listen to that now, how would you explain this to him?
Well, things are very clear. They just have to work their mind, look and read the books initially, before they blindly follow some of their misguided scholars who say, well, all Sahaba or companions are in paradise, they're all just, whatever they did, Allah will forgive their sins and it's not even counted. So they have to go back to the hadith of their Sahih, their books, and examine them and use the power of reason, the rules of aql, and apply them. And compare with the history as well. I mean, don't just stick with this hadith. See the history, what happened. See, for example, who came and stood against Imam Ali alayhi salam on the Battle of Camel. It was Talha and Zubayr. Talha and Zubair, who were companions of the Prophet, they stood against the Imam, at least the fourth Imam, okay? The fourth Imam. They fought against their fourth Imam on that battle. Same thing with Muawiyah in Siffin. He also fought against the fourth Imam, as they declare. So when you study the history and these ahadith, there's no doubt that you reach to the conclusion that, well, yes, not everyone is in the safe side. There are people who deviated. There are people who caused, all these atrocities as a result of their deviation from the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's teachings and religion of Allah. So that was the result.
Another quick question I want to ask before we can conclude, as time is kind of running short. It's not only the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'at that are safe from this tradition of Thaqalain, like you mentioned. You must have had this many occasions. Shias get accused of kind of leaving the Quran or and only taking information from the Imam alayhi salam. What would you say to Shias in light of this hadith? Because obviously, as an individual, as a sheikh, you're a balanced individual. You through your studies have tried to couple the Quran and the Imam alayhi salam together, in order to follow the right path. Are there individuals that sometimes they make mistakes because they're trying to follow only the Imams and they forget the Quran? What would you say to people like that? For example, we do have some people inside some communities that are like that. What would you say to say, listen, look, this is the right path, this is what you should do?
Well, as I've said, we have to go back to this hadith. It's clear hadith. You have the Book of Allah on one side, and you have the prophets and the Imam, the vicegerents of the Prophet, i.e. the Imams of Ahlul Bayt Salam on the other side. So we have to balance them. Basically, you cannot just take, as I've said, just take the Book of Allah and ignore the Imams, because you cannot basically believe in the Imams of Ahlul Bayt for your own justifications. Or you just come and say, well, the Imams only, and I just forget about the Quran and the Prophet, and I think the Imams are the best of everything. No, we have to be wise, and we have to judge things according to the proof and the evidence. Yes, we have the Book of Allah, and we have the Imams, salamullah alayhim, and they work together. As I've said, they work together as the Aql and Shar' work together. Also, the Imams and the Quran. I mean, Islam is represented by Ahlul Bayt salamullah alayhim. That's simple is. They represent the literal Islam. And I think Imam alayhi salam said in one of the sermons, "Ana al-Qur'an al-Natiq." I'm the speaking Quran. The talking Quran, the speaking Quran are Ahlul Bayt salamullah alayhim. The Quran is there, the Book of Allah written there, okay, fine. But who literally practices Islam are Ahlul Bayt salamullah alayhim. The Prophet had only a few years and he passed away. So who comes after him to represent the Quran literally are the Ahlul Bayt salamullah alayhim.
Thank you very much, Sheikh, for that illustrious point. I hope you, the viewers, have enjoyed this discussion. I know I've learned quite a lot from this discussion. Inshallah, join us for the next episode where we'll be furthering our discussion on the concept of leadership. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.